This is Part 2, Episode 8. The entire large hall began to tremble at this moment. Meanwhile, those stone statues that lined up with walls seemed to have came alive, as they slowly stood up. However, what caused everyone's expression to change drastically was that the aura emitted from these stone statues did not lose out to a Nirvana stage practitioner. RIP. This sudden sight first shocked the crowd, before they all promptly sucked in a breath of cold air. There were a dozen over statues that leapt out from the wall. That was to say, there were more than 10 Nirvana stage opponents. Quickly retreat. Who are you? Wumo and the rest's expression changed drastically, before they promptly shouted out quickly. A dozen over Nirvana stage stone statues was enough to completely annihilate them. When they heard their commands, the men from the Millennial Ice Empire and Great Crow Empire quickly retreated as they tried to leave the large hall. Bang! Nonetheless, just when they were about to make a move, 2 stone statues suddenly landed right in front of the large hall's entrance and directly blocked off the door. When they saw this sight, everyone's heart sunk. All of them finally realized that this large hall was a trap. Once anyone touched the key within the glowing ball, it will activate the trap. Following which, the stone statues will release an terrifying energy and completely annihilate everyone within. Lin Dong furrowed his brows when he saw this sight. Even for him, a dozen over Nirvana stage stone statues would be a minor headache. At the same time, he took a glance at Mo Ling and the rest before he stealthily heaved a sigh of relief. Previously, after he signaled them, they had all exited the large hall. Therefore, they were all in safe hands now, and this would spare him the trouble of worrying about them. After all, against these stone statues, Lin Dong did not dare to be negligent at all. Lin Dong, Mo Ling and the rest stood outside of the large hall, and they were all completely flabbergasted at this sight. When they looked at those terrifying stone statues, none of them dared to step foot inside the large hall, and they could only shout anxiously from outside. Lin Dong waved at Mo Ling through a crack on that large stone statue's body. When the latter saw his signal, his expression changed. Lin Dong was telling them to play it by ear, and if the situation worsens, they must leave by themselves immediately. After he gritted his teeth, Mo Ling hesitated for a moment before he finally nodded his head. He knew that even if he stayed behind, he would be of no aid to Lin Dong, and he would only add on to his burden. When he saw Mo Ling and the rest retreating, Lin Dong finally turned around, before he stared at this large hall, which was now in a state of emergency. Right now, this large hall had been completely surrounded by these stone statues, and it really felt like it was a one-way ticket to hell. Evidently, everyone within the large hall had a grim expression. Even that Chen Mu, who boasted that he used 500,000 Nirvana pills to attack Nirvana stage, had a steel-green expression. He understood that against 15 stone statues that were as powerful as a Nirvana stage practitioner, though he was a so-called 500,000 pills Nirvana stage practitioner, even if he used 1,000,000 Nirvana pills, he would still be pummeled into shreds. Brother Lin Dong, at this juncture, it is best if we cooperate. Currently, Mo Ling, Liu Yuan and the rest also wisely cushioned up to Lin Dong. When he saw this sight, Lin Dong did not know whether to laugh or to be angry. Those guys were clearly trying to take shelter behind his soul puppet. However, at this juncture, his blood soul puppet would likely have little impact. After all these stone statues were even more powerful than Nirvana stage practitioners. Right now, the large hall was basically split into 3 factions. The first one is Yang City, the next is Millennial Ice Empire and Great Crow Empire, and the final one is the Devil Cliff Empire. However, disregarding which faction they belong to, the one that had to be most wary of is the Nirvana stage stone statues that were lurking after them. The frozen atmosphere in the large hall did not last for a long time, before those stone statues began to tremble violently. Following which, their footsteps rumbled as they charged viciously towards the crowd in the large hall. Perhaps it was because they felt that Lin Dong's faction was the weakest, there were only 2 stone statues charging towards them. Nonetheless, it was enough to cause Ling Ji and the rest's faces to turn solemn. I will take care of one statue, and I will leave the other one to the 2 of you. The rest of you quickly back off. As he stared at those intimidating stone statues rushing towards them, Lin Dong tilted his head before he shouted at the Ling Ji duo. All right. When they saw Lin Dong volunteer to handle one stone statue, the Ling Ji duo viciously gritted their teeth. The both of them were almost Nirvana stage practitioners, and if they combined forces, they should be able to match up against a Nirvana stage practitioner. The only thing that had to hope for was that no other statues would attack them. Else, they would be completely wiped out. Lin Dong did not speak anymore. That was because that pressurizing stone statue had already charged towards him. Immediately, his figure flashed before he dashed out. As his feet executed supreme purity sky wanderer steps, his body transformed into a wisp of green smoke before he dodged that attack. At the same time, Ling Ji and Liu Yuan pushed the Yuan power in their bodies to their limits, before they clashed valiantly against another Nirvana stage stone statue. Boom! Boom! That stone statue waved its large stone fists, before it viciously swung its fists at Lin Dong. Meanwhile, the air beneath its fist was directly compressed before it transformed into a formless shockwind and viciously surrounded Lin Dong. Right now, Lin Dong's expression was exceedingly solemn. Though there was a golden glow flowing beneath his skin, that terrifying incoming shockwind still hurt his skin. In fact, if it were a half-step to Nirvana stage practitioner, just this shockwind alone would probably be enough to kill him. Lin Dong did not plan on fighting head-on with that stone status. He utilized his supreme purity sky wanderer steps, as he continuously avoided that stone statue's powerful attacks. However, that incoming shockwind still caused his skin to hurt. Nonetheless, he could feel that thanks to this formidable pressure, the golden glow beneath his skin was becoming more solid. Lin Dong, this is not checkmate, and there must be a way to resolve this situation. Furthermore, the mysterious ancient key has yet to appear, and it must have something to do with the solution. The key to resolving this situation must lie in this large hall. Just as Lin Dong was busy avoiding the stone statue's attacks, little Martin's voice suddenly sounded out in his heart. When he heard little Martin's words, Lin Dong's eyes narrowed. The latter had been through a lot, and it was extremely wise and experienced. Therefore, Lin Dong always had a certain degree of trust in little Martin's advice. Immediately, his eyes swept across the large hall. Right now, there were chaotic battles scattered across the large hall. Meanwhile, the energy shockwaves emitted from the Millennial Ice Empire and Devil Cliff Empire were the most potent. That was because most of the stone statues were attacking them, and they were truly struggling against such a powerful foe. Even that Chen Mu was being forced into a rather pitiful state by 3 Nirvana stone statues. In fact, if he had not used some peculiar body techniques, he would have likely been injured. Right now, everyone was completely concentrated on fighting and they could not afford any distractions. At this rate, their worst-case scenario will materialize. After all, they are only humans and humans will tire out. However, these stone statues will never tire out, and it would not cease to attack them until they are all dead. Boom! Lin Dong's toe tapped in mid-air, before his body slid off and avoided a powerful incoming fist from that stone status. Then, his eyes suddenly stopped. Lin Dong's eyes was concentrated at the temple wall in the middle of the large hall. At that wall, there was also a stone statue guarding it. However, that stone statue seemed slightly different from the rest. It was the only stone statue that was directly facing the large hall, while the rest of the stone statues were facing it from the side. That stone statue seems to be modeled after someone's appearance. As he stared at those stone statues which held an angry, happy, surprised and other varied emotions, Lin Dong contemplated for a moment. Could it be that all these stone statues were modeled after a person's appearance? Lin Dong's eyes once again glanced at that stone status. Unlike the other stone statues, even after awakening, that stone statue did not attack them. Instead, he sat quietly in the middle of the large hall and observed the ongoing battles. Lin Dong's eyes glimmered, while a thought quickly flashed across his mind. In the next instance, he viciously gritted his teeth, before his figure flashed. Following which, he upped his speed as he directly dashed towards that stone statue. Behind him, that stone statue that was attacking him seemed to have detected something as well, as its footsteps rumbled while it chased viciously after Lin Dong. Lin Dong's figure sped across the large hall, just like an arrow, before he quickly appeared in front of that stone status. Then, without further ado, he viciously bit his teeth, before he rammed his fist against that stone statue. Bang! A golden glow flowed beneath Lin Dong's fist. After his vicious punch, that stone statue was immediately filled with countless cracks, before it exploded with a loud bang. The instant that statue exploded, a glowing ball shot out violently from within that statue. Meanwhile, the instant that glowing ball appeared, every statue in the large hall suddenly froze before they transformed back into lifeless statues. This sudden change took everyone by surprise, before they all turned to look at Lin Dong, only to see a peculiar glowing ball that had just shot out. Lin Dong, grab that item. It is the mysterious ancient key. Right now, little Martin's delighted voice sounded out inside Lin Dong's heart, and caused a tinge of delight to surge into his eyes. It seems like it was right after all. Although the bundle of light's appearance was very sudden, there was no one in the place who did not have keen senses. Thus, the instant the light bundle appeared, numerous gazes immediately swept over, before everyone's pupils abruptly shrunk. The bundle of light squirmed. Within it, an exquisite mysterious key was faintly discernible. A unique undulation spread outwards, causing one's heart to tremble. Mysterious ancient key. A spark flashed in everyone's minds. In the next moment, practically everyone suddenly rushed forth and ferociously grabbed at the light bundle, ignoring the relentlessly chasing Nirvana Nest stone statues. Upon seeing this, Lin Dong coldly chuckled. He was the one who had solved the puzzle. How could he let these fellows enjoy the final reward? Previously, when that soft noise rang out, Lin Dong had already swiftly dashed forward. He was the person nearest to the light bundle, hence, he was naturally the first to grab it. Kid, you plan on dying? When the fastest person, Chen Mu, saw the light bundle that was just about to be his snatched away by Lin Dong, a vicious look immediately surfaced on his stern face as he shouted. From his point of view, Lin Dong was practically not even worth talking about. If the latter did not possess a soul puppet, Chen Mu would have taken action long ago, and directly shred Lin Dong into pieces. However, Chen Mu never imagined that after Lin Dong offended their Devil Cliff Empire, not only did he not flee for his life, he instead still dared to snatch away food from the jaws of a tiger. His actions undoubtedly totally pissed off Mu Chen. However, his vicious threat clearly had no effect on Lin Dong. If he was truly afraid of the Devil Cliff Empire, he would not fight over the heaven symbol spirit tree. Since there was already enmity between them, why would it matter if he deepened it a little? Thus, the corners of Lin Dong's curled in response to Chen Mu's shout as he firmly grabbed the light bundle. The instant Lin Dong's hand touched the light bundle, it abruptly shivered before a formidable energy exploded, directly blowing away Chen Mu and the rest who were about to arrive. In contrast, Lin Dong did not feel any impact at all. A pillar of light extended from the light bundle, quickly enveloping Lin Dong. In the next moment, Lin Dong's figure had strangely disappeared under Chen Mu and the rest's alarmed and furious gazes. As Lin Dong's figure disappeared, the light pillar started to shrink at a speed which can be seen with the naked eye. Upon seeing this, Chen Mu and the rest's expressions immediately changed as they abruptly raised their speed to the limit, intent on charging into the pillar of light. Inside the large hall, countless splitting wind noises echoed out, as several figures dashed towards that shrinking light pillar. However, the rate at which the pillar shrunk accelerated, and it seemed like the crowds were not going to be fast enough. Under the stares of the crowd, just as that light pillar was about to disappear, a beautiful phantom-like figure suddenly shot out from within the crowd, before it headed into the light pillar and disappeared. After that mysterious beautiful figure leapt into that light pillar finally vanished completely. Following which, Chen Mu and the rest, who were dashing over, were all left empty-handed, as they stared at that empty large hall, before their expression turned grim. Huayun and the rest had a slightly ugly expression on their face. However, it was not as twisted as Chen Mu, as they only glanced in disappointment at this sight. Evidently, this light pillar must have transported Lin Dong and that beautiful mysterious figure to the mysterious ancient key location. Since they had just advanced to Nirvana stage, they knew that it was impossible for them to track them down. Therefore, this trip ended up as a failure. I am going to wait right here. I don't believe that you won't show up again. Chen Mu's eyes were blood red, and he looked just like a desperate gambler that had lost. His face was twisted while his words were filled with potent killing intent, and it caused one's hair to stand. The instant his body disappeared, Lin Dong felt a dizzy sensation emerged from deep within his brain. At the same time, his eyes blacked out. Though this sudden development took him by surprise, it did not last for a long while, before the darkness in front of his eyes was shattered and replaced by the dim glow of light. There was an extremely vast arena right in front of Lin Dong. That arena was forged from black granite rocks, and it gave off an ancient yet sturdy sensation. However, Lin Dong's attention was not wavered by this surroundings. Instead, he focused right on the central spot of that arena. At that spot, he saw a figure seated down. The sudden appearance of another person caused Lin Dong to tense up. However, he promptly realized that there was no trace of life in that figure. Evidently, it was only a corpse. Lin Dong's figure flashed before he appeared in front of that corpse. After he quickly took a glance at it, he was promptly shocked to realize that corpse was still completely intact. If it were not for the fact that there were no traces of life within, anyone would have mistaken it for a live human. Nonetheless, this was not what shocked Lin Dong the most. Instead, he found out that the corpse's appearance was actually identical to the stone statues in that large hall. This man must be the owner of the stone hall. Lin Dong's eyes glimmered before he looked down. Then, he saw that there was actually an old yellow key in that corpse's palms. That key could be held by 2 palms, and it looked like it was made from a rather unique material. It looked like wood, yet it was not wood. At the same time, there were several peculiar tattoos inscribed on it. Faintly, a heart-palpitating sensation emerged from it. Mysterious ancient key. When Lin Dong saw that ancient wooden key, his eyes lit up immediately. Even though he had already seen a strange key in that stone hall previously, when this key appeared, he immediately knew that he had seen the real deal. Lin Dong's eyes were burning red. This time around, he did not hesitate at all as he directly reached for that mysterious ancient key. However, the instant Lin Dong stretched out his arm, a powerful shock wind emerged from behind him. This sudden development caused Lin Dong to be shocked. However, he promptly jerked his hand, before a red glow shot out from within his palm and transformed into a sturdy figure before it shielded his back. A crisp sound echoed out, while an alarming shock wind swept forth, and it actually caused Lin Dong to retreat several steps. Finally, he lifted his head up solemnly and glanced towards the distance. Immediately, his expression froze. That was because the person he saw was not Chen Mu, Hua Yun, or the rest like he had expected. Instead, it was a lady dressed in a red skirt. That lady had a slim and alluring figure, and she looked extremely elegant. Her overflowing ink-like black hair, and her beautiful face that looked just like a cherry blossom gave off a seductive tinge. Together with her beautiful and alluring eyes, she caused one's heart to flutter. This was the first time Lin Dong saw such a beautiful lady at the ancient battlefield. Ha ha, this little brother, this sister is also after the mysterious ancient key. How about you let me have it? That lady dressed in red smiled as she looked at Lin Dong. Her voice was extremely playful and seductive. Therefore, even though her request was completely outlandish, it was difficult for anyone to be angry at her. When he heard her words, Lin Dong released a dry smile. Thankfully, he was not a man who would completely lose his senses after meeting a beautiful lady. Furthermore, he was clearly aware that his lady was no simple pushover. The fact that she could surpass a practitioner like Chen Mu and head into this area indicated that she possessed extraordinary skills. Furthermore, Lin Dong failed to detect her presence during that chaotic battle before. Evidently, this lady was secretly concealing herself and watching the show. Her abilities and intellect far exceeds that of any ordinary woman. Since this sister sounds so magnanimous, how about you don't snatch my tool? This does not fit your image as a classy lady. Lin Dong smiled as his eyes glanced at that mysterious ancient key in the hands of that corpse. This sister is no saint, therefore I do not have to act like a classy lady. In fact, I prefer to be an unreasonable bitch. That lady dressed in red smiled coyly. Promptly, she gently gripped her soft jade-like hands before a fiery red whip immediately appeared. As she gently swung her whip, it seemed like it was even able to forcefully blow apart the surrounding air. Meanwhile, the vibrations emitted from it caused Lin Dong's pupils to shrink. It seems like this lady was even more powerful than Chen Mu. That lady dressed in red grinned as she stared right at Lin Dong. Meanwhile, her fiery red whip was just like a snake as it deftly coiled around her body. At the same time, a formless pressure emerged from her body and caused Lin Dong's body to feel sluggish. This woman is not going to be easy to deal with. Hehe, Chen Mu and the rest are definitely still outside waiting. Even if you obtain the ancient mysterious key, you will still be unable to leave. Lin Dong's gaze swiveled as he spoke. Chen Mu. Demonic Cliff Empire. When she heard his words, that lady dressed in red gently pursed her lips and revealed a tinge of pride and nonchalance. However, she did not elaborate. Instead, she stared at Lin Dong before she smiled and said, "Little brother, do you want to abandon it, or do you want to play with this big sister? I believe based on your soul puppet alone, it would be a little difficult to stop this sister. Since you want that mysterious ancient key so much, I would not be a gentleman if I continued to fight with you." Lin Dong shrugged his shoulders. The words that he spoke caused that lady in red clothes to smile. However, she promptly disposed Lin Dong in her heart. She did not like men who backed off so easily. Then, let me thank this little brother. Of course, this lady dressed in red clothes would not express her true intentions. Instead, she coyly smiled, before she jerked the whip in her hand and targeted the mysterious ancient key in the palm of that corpse. However, the instant that whip lashed out, that blood soul puppet, that was quietly standing still, suddenly shot out, before its vicious fist wind unceremoniously slammed against that lady. Since she had already lashed out her whip, it was not possible to recall it to defend herself. Nonetheless, this lady dressed in red clothes was fairly skilled, and she only took a few steps back, before she managed to deftly avoid the blood soul puppet's attack. At the same time, the whip in her hand missed its target and landed on the ground beside the corpse and left a crack on it. Just as that whip landed on the ground, Lin Dong's figure lightning quick appeared beside that corpse. Then, he stared at that lady dressed in red clothes, whose beautiful eyes were now burning in rage, before he softly said, "My apologizes, in my opinion, the mysterious ancient key is more attractive than you." After he spoke, his palm immediately grabbed onto that mysterious ancient key. Clearly, the unforeseen event slightly startled the red-dressed lady. She certainly did not expect Lin Dong to feint with his spear, and use this opportunity to force her to retreat. "He, you are quite an interesting fellow. It seems that big sister has underestimated you. However, I'm afraid it will not be an easy task to snatch the mysterious ancient key from me." Even though there was some unexpected changes to the situation, it was clear that Lin Dong had underestimated the lady's capabilities as well. With a flick of the lady's slender and lily-white hand, her blazing whip perked up abruptly and curved with a weird arc and lashed towards Lin Dong's neck with a lightning speed. Lin Dong could sense the might of the red-dressed lady's retaliation. Thus, without any hesitation, he grasped his palms before his heavenly crocodile spear appeared immediately. Following which, he quickly brandished his bone spear and stopped the incoming spiraling, blazing whip. Clang! When bone spear and fiery whip made contact, a series of sparks quickly erupted. After which, Lin Dong could feel waves of tingling sensation broke out in his arms. Deep in his mind, he was secretly shocked. The strength of this lady was far too powerful. After doing his utmost to defend against the incoming blazing whip, Lin Dong then jolted his mind before his blood soul puppet struck out once again. Violent sonic booms from its fist poured down onto the lady dressed in red like a torrential rain. Evidently, compared to Lin Dong, that lady dressed in red was far more wary of his blood soul puppet. As such, she suddenly brandished her lily-white hands before an equivalently powerful surge of deathly aura gushed from her body and collided directly with the blood soul puppet. Bang! A muffled explosion resounded throughout the air as a forceful shock wave swept across the area. While the lady dressed in red was caught up in a fierce fight with his blood soul puppet, Lin Dong got tangled up with the fiery whip. As he was engaging with the fiery whip, his mind got increasingly alarmed. This lady was indeed extraordinary. Not only did she manage to maintain a neutral position in her battle with the blood soul puppet, she was also able to divert her attention in controlling her blazing whip to entangle Lin Dong and prevent him from seizing the mysterious ancient key. It was also clear that the blazing whip was an incredible artifact, and there was a scorching heat emitted from its surface. After merely making contact with it, Lin Dong could feel the blood in his body boiling. Luckily, he was able to use his devouring power to repress the whip's boiling effect on his blood. "I can't let this battle drag on any further." Lin Dong's eyes flickered. The origin of this lady was unknown and mysterious. No one knew what mysterious artifacts or skills that she possessed. Given the current situation, it would be best to obtain the key and leave this place as soon as possible. "I may not be on par with you, but aren't you underestimating me, Lin Dong, by just using part of your attention to control an earthly soul treasure to hinder me?" Lin Dong then took a step backward. With a snap of his finger, a black glow shot out from his sleeves. The black glow expanded as it flew through the air and eventually materialized into a black-colored mountain, which was precisely the Heavy Peak Prison. Boom! When the Heavy Peak Prison appeared, a dark radiance gushed out from it. Following which, a powerful and relentless gravitational force engulfed the blazing whip. Immediately, the nimble speed of the blazing whip began to dampen down. Upon seeing this, Lin Dong seized this opportunity to carry out his attack, which forced the blazing whip to gradually retreat. "Little boy, you are indeed quite capable." The red-dressed lady cried angrily as she furrowed her long, pencil-thin eyebrows. Clearly, she was distraught at the sight of her whip retreating. Lin Dong remained silent. The voice of this lady was pleasant to hear. Even at this moment, her voice contained a flirtatious tone. However, Lin Dong knew that she would not hold back her ruthlessness during a real fight. If one's mind was to be swayed by her words, he was bound to be in trouble. Lin Dong did not want this to happen and therefore, he chose to ignore the red-dressed lady's words. Humph! When she saw Lin Dong ignoring her, the lady dressed in red snorted through her delicate nostrils. Soon after, a tinge of chilliness flashed across her peach-like eyes. She carried out a series of transforming hand seals, before a powerful energy wave gushed out from her slender and jade-white hands. Yin-yang Great Jade Palm. Surging yuan power gushed out like a torrent from the red-dressed lady's delicate palms. Within seconds, the surging yuan power transformed into a lustrous palm that was split evenly into black and white colors. Though that palm was not huge, the energy shockwaves undulated on that palm sufficed to ashen the face of Nirvana stage practitioner such as Hua Yun. Clank! Without any hesitation, that lustrous palm shot out directly and sealed itself on the chest of the blood soul puppet with a lightning speed. At once, an astonishing energy wave swept across the area like a hurricane. After being struck by the red-dressed lady's palm, even the all-powerful blood soul puppet was driven back several steps. Following which, a palm-like scar was imprinted on its chest. If this attack was to land on any Nirvana stage practitioner, he or she might suffer some injuries. However, the blood soul puppet did not have any sensory receptors, and thus, once it stabilized itself, it could launch torrential attacks untiringly on the red-dressed lady without the slightest amount of hesitation. Facing the death-unfearing blood soul puppet, the lady dressed in red's eyes froze slightly and her teeth clenched lightly. Apparently, the blood soul puppet was a thorny problem for her. Given her usual style, she would have taken her time and slowly beat down this soul puppet into a piece of scrap metal. However, she did not have the luxury of time now as Lin Dong was suppressing her fiery whip effortlessly on the other side. Her control over the fiery whip was getting weaker and weaker. If this carried on, the mysterious ancient key would land on Lin Dong's hands sooner or later. The beautiful, glittering eyes of the red-dressed lady flickered. After a moment, she clenched her teeth tightly and pointed her slender, fair finger towards the mid-air. A drop of scarlet essence blood seeped out from the tip of her finger, before it lightning quick grew and transformed into an unusual blood symbol. Seal. The blood symbol engulfed the blood soul puppet like a spider web. Thump. The blood soul puppet struggled arduously in the blood symbol. However, the bloody web was extremely sturdy and the blood soul puppet could not break out of it even after a while. After momentarily trapping the blood soul puppet, the red-dressed lady could finally shift her attention. At this point of time, her face was slightly pale. It seems like using that blood symbol had exhausted her energy significantly. At this moment, the red-dressed lady stared viciously at Lin Dong. However, on her beautiful face, that expression actually gave off an seductive sensation instead. Little boy, you have truly pissed big sister off. The red-dressed lady squinted her beautiful eyes and exclaimed, when she saw Lin Dong rendered her blazing whip immovable. Lin Dong shot a glance at his trapped blood soul puppet. He was shocked by the red-dressed lady's action as well. With a glint in his eyes, he abruptly took a step forward and reached for the mysterious ancient key that was in the corpse's hand. The lady dressed in red had expected Lin Dong to do this. With a wave of her lily-white hand, a black and white, lustrous palm formed and blasted ferociously towards Lin Dong. If this attack was to hit Lin Dong, he would suffer injuries even with his lesser Nirvana golden body. As powerful gales accompanied the incoming attack, Lin Dong's facial expression changed drastically. However, a fierce look appeared on his face eventually. He decided not to dodge or move and continued reaching out his hand. Finally, he managed to grab the mysterious ancient key firmly with his hand. As Lin Dong grabbed the mysterious ancient key, the lady dressed in red's attack became extremely deadly at the same time. However, just as the lustrous palm was about to strike Lin Dong, a bulky serpent tail that was emitting purplish-black energy shot out from Lin Dong's sleeves and collided firmly with the lustrous palm. Bang! A sharp and crisp sound resonated through the air, and a gust of strong wind swept across the area. Even Lin Dong was driven back several steps before he could stabilize his body. After seeing the serpent tail retracting quickly into his sleeves, he knew that it was Little Martin and Little Flame that combined forces to help him secretly. Lin Dong, channel your yuan power into the mysterious ancient key. This dimension exists within the mysterious ancient key. If you can control the mysterious ancient key, you can forcefully kick this lady out of this place. Little Martin's voice rang urgently across Lin Dong's mind. Upon hearing these words, Lin Dong twitched his mind. Without the slightest amount of hesitation, a surge of yuan power gushed through his hand into the mysterious ancient key. Since the mysterious ancient key did not belong to anyone, Lin Dong's yuan power could be channeled into it without any obstruction. At this moment, he could sense that he had an absolute control over this dimension. Lin Dong raised his head and beamed at the red-dressed lady. At this point of time, the latter clenched her teeth and grasped her hands as if she had sensed something. After a short while, she suddenly smiled sweetly and spoke coquettishly, "Little boy, you're not that heartless, right?" Lin Dong spread out his hands and chose to ignore the red-dressed lady's alluring smile. He then grinned, "I have no choice. If I'm not heartless, I might be the one who get kicked out of here." While speaking, Lin Dong waved the mysterious ancient key that was in his hand lightly. Immediately, the surrounding dimension began to shift. A pillar of light shot out of thin air and engulfed the red-dressed lady. The latter's body became faintly discernible in the pillar of light. As the red-dressed lady engulfed by the light pillar, a reddish-green glow appeared on her face. However, she did have an excellent self-restraint. Even at this moment, she was still smiling charmingly at Lin Dong. Yet the words that came out of her mouth made Lin Dong cringed. "You are Lin Dong, right? Fine, this time around, Big Sister lost to you. However, do not assume that you have defeated me. You have only obtained a mere mysterious ancient key. Big Sister will wait for you in the ancient trove, but by then, if you are still this weak, don't blame Big Sister for being merciless. Remember Big Sister's name, Mu Hongling. I'm afraid you won't be so lucky next time around." After Lin Dong saw the red-dressed lady disappeared completely into the light pillar, he finally heaved a long sigh. This lady was truly troublesome. Part 2 end here.